Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is separation. We've talked about this before, but I think it warrants a return visit. So we'll dig into that in a minute or two. But first, let's just take a minute to get present and take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine wonderful, clean, brilliant, bright oxygen moving into your lungs and throughout your bloodstream and coursing through your body. And as you exhale, exhale any tension in your neck, in your shoulders, your back, and just relax and be here, present. Take another deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine this time sparkling white light just enlivening every molecule of your being and moving out into the world beyond, connecting you and enlivening you. And exhale any tension and just allow yourself to relax and gently press your palms together. Rub your fingers really softly against your palms to feel that delicious tickling feeling and allow yourselves to be here right now. So, welcome. Thank you so much for being with me here. Today, we're going to talk about separation and how separation is the paradigm that pretty much we exist within, even when we are looking for connection and oneness. So, how does separation show up? It shows up in all different kinds of ways, and one is just the experience of ourselves as autonomous beings, and thinking or imagining in our culture that what I do, I can do uh, without an impact, without creating impact on others. And when we think of the universe, we think of things and people as discrete individual objects. And if we look at the physics of things, if we look at the science of things, in fact, that we exist as fields of energy that are constantly intermingling with other fields of energy. And our energy and our energetic pattern impacts the energetic patterns of all other things. And so, this notion or presumption of separateness is at the foundation of so many of our cultural beliefs and behaviors, and like believing that if I'm if I'm happy, it's me that's happy. But we all know that if we're happy, we impact other people with that happiness, right? When we interact with other people, it's catching. Emotions are contagious. And so feeling separate and alone is something that plagues so many of us in our lives. And when we connect to the idea of our interrelationship, where we reflect the world and the world reflects us, then we have the capacity to make different choices. If we recognize, for instance, if I were, let's say, I went to a fast food restaurant and I finished my food and I throw the litter out of the window of my car as I'm driving, because I believe I'm separate. I believe that what I do doesn't have an impact on others. We recognize, I mean, this is a really obvious example. We recognize that we are impacting the world that we're engaged with, right? So, what is it? What is it in our lives that shifts as we start to connect, as we start to recognize that how I live my life impacts not only me, but it impacts the world that I live in. So the food choices I make, the lifestyle I keep, the amount of resources I use, the way that I interact with others. If I am engaged in a conversation about ideas and we disagree with one another, what if I'm coming from a place of separation? I may be acting very differently than if I'm coming from a place of recognizing our oneness and our connection, and recognizing that you and I are reflections of the same thing, that we are all part of one thing. And back to the idea of separateness, where so many of us feel isolated and alone, when we recognize that there's this deeper, true connection with all things, how can that shift our experience? So I invite you to participate here with playing with this idea of separation. The idea of separation allows us to do things like have wars. The idea of separation allows us to subjugate other people, or to treat other people badly, or to dismiss other people as less than, or different, and by virtue of their difference be less than. When we when we objectify people, we objectify situations where we discount the value. We objectify animals. We objectify all kinds of things, and we see those things as outside of ourselves rather than as part of a greater continuum, because we have this notion of separation. It even goes into our perspectives on medicine, for instance. When we think about things as a mechanistic collection, like in our body is a mechanistic collection of organs and systems. And if there is a problem with the heart, we can just address the problem with the heart, that it's not reflected in the whole system, for example. So I don't know if you guys are writing comments. I had a strange experience yesterday with Facebook where I was unable to see the comments, and now I'm also seeing no comments. So I don't know if you guys are interacting with me or not. And if you are, I apologize, because I would love to be responding to you, but I can't see what you're saying. So this is just a new and weird phenomenon as I'm doing Facebook for the past couple days. So don't think I'm ignoring you. I will respond to all your comments when the recording is over. I was able to see them yesterday, and I'll be able to hopefully see them again and respond to you. So please engage. I deeply appreciate you being here and your participation. And so I don't want you to feel like you're being ignored, because you're not. Um, anyway, this idea of separation, what brought it back to mind for me is I had discussed it at length before, where we talked about how this notion of separation enables us to pollute our environment, to devalue other people, to devalue other life forms on the planet, etc., to engage in behaviors that are destructive, and that we know are destructive because we're separate from everything else. So it doesn't really matter if we do that, because it doesn't come back to impact us. What brought this back to mind is that there is a course that Charles Eisenstein, you may have heard of him, sort of a contemporary cultural philosopher, that's my take. But He's doing a free course from now through maybe the 10th of August on a platform called Commune or Commune. And it's talking about where the divisiveness is in our world. Where does it originate? And this also was prompted by a conversation that I was having with a friend when they brought up the concept of evil. And we were talking about, well, what is evil? And in my life, I spent many years holding that question to find an answer. And the answer that came to me about what evil is that it is a lack of love, that it is a lack of connection. Evil is able to emerge, behaviors that are evil are able to emerge because there is this lack of connection. There's a deep disconnection with others, with the impact that we have on others, with the oneness that we are. So this notion of separation is the foundation of what I have come to believe is it allows for what we call evil, which is, I mean, how could people perpetrate these terrible, terrible things upon one another if they truly were connected, right? If we truly were present to the oneness that we are, we wouldn't be able to do harm to another because we would recognize that it's harm to ourselves. We wouldn't be able to uh, pollute our environment to make money because it would be impacting ourselves. We would be recognizing that we are destroying our own resources, our own lifeblood. And so I invite you, please, even though I can't respond right now to the comments, which is disturbing, let's please post so that I can respond afterwards, and maybe we can engage more fully together in this conversation about separation and how it's such a fundamental assumption in our culture. You know, like we're waiting in line for something and we can get impatient and upset because we have our own things that we're trying to get accomplished, and it's because we're not being connected with the motion of the whole. I talked about this, I think it was last week or the week before. We had seen a movie called The Connected Universe, and it's a beautiful movie with focus on the work of Nassim Haramein, who is a unified physicist. He's creating and getting validation for a unified theory of physics that he has put together, and there are proofs that are being very successful around that right now, which is really exciting because what it does is it connects all facets of our reality with a theory that works on all levels, which is pretty exciting. Instead of breaking physics into quantum physics and Newtonian physics, it kind of unifies the whole thing. And in that unification, what what comes clear is that the macrocosm and the microcosm are reflections of one another. And so the saying goes, you're probably quite familiar, as above so below, as within so without. um, what what happens is that this universe, although we imagine it as many, 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 many multitudes of individual occurrences that are isolated occurrences, in fact, it's really all one movement. It's all one thing. And this is, we can take that to the level of our bodies. For instance, as I was saying, if we have a problem with our elbow, we think that it's an isolated elbow problem, and we isolate that from the whole, when in fact there's a whole dynamic, and it may be some weird thing with your hip that is knocking your elbow out of alignment, or some balance in your spine. So, as we start recognizing where we interact with the world as separate, we have the call to enable ourselves the freedom of at first imagining, because we want to be able to conceptualize what it is to be connected, and what does it look like if we connect with the other people in our lives as if they were extensions of ourselves, as if they were part of ourselves, reflecting our greater selves back to us. What does that shift in your experience? What does it shift if everything in the world is a reflection and a projection of you, and you are all those things? What the expansiveness of that? What happens when you allow yourself the experience of the expansiveness into that experience, or that awareness rather? It shifts your beingness on a fundamental level. And so when we get angry and frustrated at other people, how can we move into this place of oneness to transform that experience into something that is inclusive? And as we stop perceiving other people as other, what happens is an opening of the heart, an opening of our capacity to love, to engage, to be present, to elevate ourselves and our awareness. So I'm curious what you guys are thinking, and I'm really curious because I can't see what you're thinking because the comments aren't showing up. But I invite you to play with this idea of unity versus separation, and what might be available through that. And part of this notion of separateness also is what keeps us separate from the experience of living, of really living fully, present to the act of living, because we have taken this notion of separateness into identification of ourselves with external things. So in this separateness, I gain my value by the things that I accumulate, or the money that I may have, or the things I have done, because I am not part of the flow of life. What happens is, because we have this notion of separateness, it doesn't allow us to value living for its own value. Just living being a value in and of itself, and life being a value in and of itself. And therefore, we identify with all these things and that are separate from us. And the more we have, then the more value we accrue. And as we recognize our oneness, there's less need for the grasping and the greed and the hunger for more. And so I just invite you to look at an experience. Give yourself the opportunity to presence yourself to what it feels like to be connected, to be one with the world. What is that like? What is it if you are the world and the world is you? And how does that shift your experience? There is a sufficiency in that that needs nothing more. And when there is not the experience of need, and there is the experience of sufficiency, there's a greater connection to the flow of life. And this may seem really abstract, but it has lots and lots of practical, experiential applications in our lives, because when it's all part of us, we are complete and we are whole. And our completeness and our wholeness isn't dependent upon things and circumstance. And when we come from that place of completion and wholeness, then the frequency that we're residing in is a frequency where things flow much more gracefully and with greater ease. So I'm very grateful to you for engaging with me in this conversation and for your patience in my not being able to respond directly to your comments. I will take the time to do that now. I'm so grateful to share these conversations and these adventures of heart and mind with you. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and we're here every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and we're on Enlightened World Network, which is a wonderful, wonderful platform for connecting, for awakening, for awareness, and I invite you to check it out, and hopefully you'll come back and join me again with lots and lots of love and compassion for you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.